Today we're gonna see the most important aspect of web development, which is CSS. So let's ask the question, what is CSS? Well, CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. From the name we can understand that we're gonna style something, but why do we need CSS? To answer that question, we need to first think about HTML. So HTML was initially created with the purpose of creating the content of the web page. It was never intended to create the design of the web page. So if you want to create good looking websites, you really need CSS to do that. Alright, before learning CSS, let us see what CSS can do. Well, I would say three things. So the first thing is it can change color and more. For example, let's say there's a text like this in our web page. With CSS we can easily change its color or maybe add some background to it and more. So the second important thing is the layout. For example, like we can structure the layout of our web page like this, and we could also change the layout according to our wish easily by using the CSS, and also about the positioning of the elements that we use in our web page. We can also color certain parts that we wish. And the third thing that I would say is we can make amazing animations with CSS. So let's get started. Right, now let's see how we can use CSS to style our web pages. So the first way is to use the inline CSS, and the second is called internal CSS, and the third way is called external CSS, which is pretty much interesting. Let's have a look on inline CSS. So usually we have some text within our tags like this. So how we can use CSS in our tags is by adding the attribute of style equals double quotes, and within the double quotes we can give all the properties that we need to change in order to design that part. In this case it's just color, which states as blue, which means the text rendered in the web page will be turned into blue. Let's see it in action. So we have an HTML file in our folder and some basic text in our web page. So let's use what we learned. Let's type a style equals, and within the double quotes let's give out the property color and colon. Now I can choose a color, let's say blue, and to close that let me use a semicolon there, save it. Yeah, it's working. But if we want to add more than one property, just go for that and type the next one, maybe a background color, let's say yellow, and save it as well. Great, it works fine. And yeah, let me take you through how we can use it. So you can type as style equals, and within the double quotes you can give us any number of properties that you want to design. So we have used color and background color in our case, and after the property that you give, make sure to use a colon and the value that you want to give, in this case it's color, and end it with a semicolon there. And one more thing to notice is that h1 tag has taken the whole block of our website. So let me copy this code here, and if I save it, we can see that span tag takes only the amount of space that the text carries. Great. So let's learn the second way now. So the second way of using CSS, which is called as internal CSS, we can use a style tag, and we need to ensure that we use the style tag within the head tag of our web page, and we can design all the styles that we have in our web page within the style tag. Now let's see it in action. Okay, so we want to create a style tag within the head tag of our HTML. It doesn't matter if we place before the metadata or below the title, that is fine. Now case, let me use it over here. I'm going to type a style, and we need to close that tag, and within the style tag we can choose what we want to design. So we were designing the h1 tag, right? Let me choose h1, open and close parentheses, and within that we can choose the property. Well, as last time, let's choose color. Below, close it with a semicolon and save. There you go, it works. And to design the next property, let's say background color. Yeah, it works the same. The only difference is when we do it in this way, it gives a good look and we can easily figure out what we're doing while we recheck the codes, and we don't have to get interfere with the HTML elements over here, which might confuse if we use a lot of properties when we design. Alright, now let's go for the third way now. Third way, which is called as external CSS, is pretty much different from what we learned before. We need to create a new file. Maybe we can name it as style or whatever you want, and save it with the extension of .css. And within that file you can implement all the properties that you want to design. And after doing that, what you can do is you can use this tag to link that file into your web page. So it starts with link rel equals double quotes, and you can say it's a style sheet, as the name implies, as Cascading Style Sheets. And you can use the attribute href, which we normally use for links, and within that you can give the name of the CSS file that you're linking it. Okay, now let's see this in action now. Alright, so I'm within my folder. I can click this icon or right click and select new file to create a new file. I'm gonna name it as style or whatever you want, and I'm gonna use the extension .css. Save it. So this is the new file that we created. So what we can normally do is we can normally type as h1 is parentheses as we did before, and give out its properties color blue semicolon and hit save. But now it is not visible because this is an external file. These two files doesn't have any connection at all for the moment. To bring the connection, what we need to do is, as you saw before, we need to link it within our web page, and it's always better to do within the head. So let's type as link rel equals, let's type as style sheet, and let's use the attribute href equals, it will also suggest me the file that we have, which is called style.css. Let me close it, and you don't have to actually close the link tag. Let me save now, and there you go, it is visible. So if I make a change now here, let's say background color yellow, it automatically changes, because now whenever we make any changes to the external CSS file, it will impact the HTML file that we're working with. So you don't have to actually move to HTML again and to CSS, but to stay in this file and design how you want it to be. So I have changed the h1 tag into a paragraph tag, because we don't usually use more than one h1 tag when we make web pages. And I have changed the design, the element selector, to the paragraph tag that we have. And the problem now is, since we have more than one paragraph tag, we have 3 paragraph tags over here, and as we have selected the paragraph tag in the CSS, what it has done, it has given the same design to all the paragraph tags that we have here. It's good, but let's assume that we want to give that design only to the second paragraph. Let's see how we can do that. When we use the ID selector in the HTML file, we might be having some text like this with some paragraph tags. So we can use the attribute ID equals double quotes, and we can give out any name that we wish, but make sure that you don't leave any spaces. But if you do need any spaces as you're typing more than one words, try to use a dash sign or subtraction sign over there and give it a name. And after doing this, head to the CSS file and use the hashtag and give the name p text, which you had given as the value for the ID attribute of the paragraph tag in the HTML. Open and close parentheses and give out the design there by using the properties. And one more thing is, the ID attribute can be only used in internal CSS or external CSS. It cannot be used in inline CSS. And to be more confident on this, let's see how we can do this actually. Okay, now let's do that. Let's type as ID equals, within double quotes, let's type as p text. Save. Nothing happens. Let me copy the name that we have given to the ID attribute of the paragraph tag. Head to the CSS, remove this, hit save. So there is no design now. Let me use the hashtag there and type in the name of the ID. Now I hope if I save it, the design is given only to the second paragraph. Now we are not selecting elements based on tags, but we're selecting specific elements based on the ID that we have given over there. And one more thing is, you can use ID only once in your HTML page. It's like a unique ID to whatever you're doing there. Let's think of a situation where you want to give the same design to the second paragraph and the third paragraph, but not to the first paragraph. So in this case, we can use the ID attribute, but it is not recommended and it is considered as a bad practice. So if you want to use the same design to more than one element, it can be paragraph, span, or whatever it is, there is an easy way to do that. So when we need to give the same design to a lot of elements in our web page, we can use the class selector. So in HTML, we'll be having something like this. So we can type as class equals double quotes and give it any name that you wish, and head back to the CSS file, type as dot and the name that you have given as the class ID to the paragraph tag there, and open and close parentheses and give out the design within it. Make sure to use the period or so-called dot before the name in the CSS file when you use it. So this time let's head back to CSS and give out a different design. Let's name it as p class. Let's give the color of maroon, background color as violet. Save it. Okay, now let's use the same design to more than one element. Let's use it for the second one, like paragraph class equals, paste it there, hit save, and yeah, we have it there. Let's see if we can use it within the span tag as well. Great. So in this way, you can give the same designs to any number of elements that you wish. Let's have a quick recap on what we learned today. We learned what CSS is, the uses of CSS, and 3 ways of using CSS in our web page. And the first one is inline, second one was internal, and the last one, which we used in most of the parts of our tutorial, was external CSS. And we also learned about CSS selectors, such as tag selector, the ones that we used to give designs for our h1 tags and the paragraph tag, the ID selector, where we were reminded to use only once in our web page, and class selector, where we have to use it for a number of times. So what is your preferred way of using CSS? Is it gonna be inline, internal, or external CSS? Mention that in the comment box below. And yeah, we have reached the end of today's video, so please put a thumbs up if you have learned anything from this video, and please don't forget to subscribe to get more videos like this, and to share to anyone who needs help on this. You could also check out our HTML playlist to learn all about HTML language. Have a great day, guys. Happy coding!